Hello there, I'm Richard Denning from Medusa Games, and this is a Twitch stream on Nineworlds Creatures and Monsters, which is an expansion that we're working on at the moment and plan to release hopefully in about a year's time, in Essen 2021, assuming the world returns to normal next year. So for those of you who have not yet done so, you can find out more about Nineworlds, the basic game Nineworlds, in several places. Here at Spiel Digital we are doing demonstrations of Nineworlds on the Medusa game stand. We also have videos on the Medusa game stand on how to learning all about Nineworlds in about 5 minutes or so. And there are other videos on our Twitch stream and on our YouTube videos, so you'll be able to find out plenty about what Nineworlds is. But just to give you the very briefest of outlines, Nineworlds is a area-controlled Norse mythology-themed game. So basically, it's set in the Nineworlds of the Norse mythology. Here you can see the board that I've got set up here in Tabletopia, and the game is available for play for free on Tabletopia, including the first expansion, Sagas and Treasures, and you can have a go at the game on there. Here is the game. So basically, it is a game board that represents the 9 worlds of the Viking universe, from Asgard down to Niflheim and all the other worlds in between, including Midgard. You, as a player, will be one of these avatars on the 9 worlds. So perhaps you are Beowulf in Midgard, or you might be Mistress Hel here in Niflheim. And you are basically represented by this piece on the board. In the basic game, each of the avatars has no particular powers, but on the reverse side of these character sheets there are avatar powers that give each of the avatars unique individual characteristics. So in the basic game that we brought out in 2016, you are fighting to control the 9 worlds. At the scoring rounds of the game, which will happen on turns 3 and on turn 6 in a standard game, and again on turn 9 in a long game, you will score for stones as we call them, which are these followers. These are represented in the real world game by little sort of crystal glass sort of discs, sort of droplet shaped. In this Tabletopia environment, we're just using these wooden discs for it. But for each of those that you've got on your card, you score a point. For each of those that you've got in the 9 worlds, you will score 2 points. For each of the 9 worlds that you are on, you will score points. You will also score points for every world that you control, or areas that you share control of, such as that. Any stones that are in Helheim that have been banished to Helheim score minus points, and you get points for winning battles in the game as well. Now that's the basic game. The way you normally play the game is you'll have a certain amount of action points, so let's say 8, and you'll use those action points to move stones from your bag, or the reserve as it were, onto your card, and from your card onto the world your avatar is on. Each of those costs a point. Or you can move to a world that your avatar is not on for 2 points. You can move stones between worlds for points. You can move avatars between worlds for points. You can move other players' stones for 2 points each. If you're there, it only costs you 1. If they're there, it costs 3 to move their stone. If you're both there, you cancel each other out. It's back to 2. The other thing you can do with points is for 3 points you can banish somebody's stone to Helheim. So in the game, that's what you're doing. You'll be spending those points to try and get stones onto the boards, onto as many worlds as possible, to try and take control of as many worlds as possible. And then, if you get into situations where there are at least 5 stones on a world, let's just bring that out a minute. So 3 more here. So there are 5 stones on that middle world there on Midgard. So that means that the world power associated will activate. There has to be at least 5 stones. If there are more than 5 stones, then the stones are removed until you get down to 5, and those stones come off in player order, which would be green first, then purple, then black. So a purple stone would come off, but that still leaves purple in control of the world because it's got the majority of the stones. So it will get to use the world power that is associated with that world, and the stone that went will go to Valhalla and will score them points because he won a battle. He or she won the battle. So you move the stones onto the boards, try and take control, try and get use of the world powers. The world powers are things like exchange stones between worlds, to bring extra stones onto the worlds, remove stones from the worlds, banish them to Helheim, and so on. Right, we then brought out the Sagas and Treasures expansion, which brings in Treasures of the Gods, which are things like Thor's hammer, which allow you to knock stones out of the world that you were in if you happen to have Thor's hammer, or move more quickly if you have Sleipnir, say, the eight-legged horse of Odin. Or maybe world powers can't be used against a world where your avatar is present if you've got Svalin, the magical shield. So that is the Sagas and Treasures expansion. And what we're looking at here is Creatures and Monsters. This is the next expansion we're working on. So Creatures and Monsters brings in the Viking universe, Norse mythology monsters and things. So if we have a look here, there are the 2 decks, about a total of 16 cards. As examples, we've got Draugr, which is sort of like the zombies, the undead creatures. Valkyries, most people have heard of the Valkyries. The werewolves. Werewolves are a Viking idea. Garms, sort of like fierce warrior dogs, cave trolls, and so on. Now, at the moment, this is still prototype art. So I shall show you some of the more advanced art, the almost production quality art, in a moment. So, monsters. So these monsters are dealt out. There are 2 less monsters than there are players, and they're put on the table like that. You then put next to them bonus tokens, depending on the number of bonus slots, and 1 penalty token per player. The monster cards are worth a certain number of victory points, top left, which relates to the number of so these are victory points in the full game, and whoever has the most monsters will get an extra 5 points at the end in the scoring rounds. But also monsters in some cases have powers on the top right. This power allows you once per turn to move a stone from any of the 9 worlds back to a player's reserve. This one means that when you bring stones back from Valhalla, which happens in the Valhalla phase of the normal game, you can score not just 2 points but 3 points for doing that. Or you can move it to any of the other 9 worlds and just score the normal 2. And there are various powers in the game. The werewolf one has a lycanthrope power, which means it can temporarily take over another player's stone for a battle. Okay, the other things then that you can see on the monster cards here are these circles, these little red dots. So these little red dots have letters on. These will probably be icons in the full game, but that V means Valhalla, H for home, C for card, the R's are reserve. Okay, and sometimes there are 9s, which means any of the 9 worlds, and some are HEs, which are Helheim. What this means is these will be where the stones will return to after they've fought the monsters. So what happens in the game is this. You play the game as per normal, as in you determine the player order. In player order you spend your 8 action points, or however many you've got depending on the number of players in the game. One option for those action points is to move a stone from your bag directly to this muster point, this mead hall or the warrior's hall. That's an option in addition to being able to do all the normal stuff that you can do in the action phase, about moving stones between worlds and so on. So as part of that process, some stones may have ended up here on this warrior's hall. You can have a look at the early sketch work for this. As you can see, the idea is that it's going to look a little bit like a warrior's hall with the Vikings fighting, or mock fights, and someone getting drunken or having food here in the background, or there are trophies on the walls and so on. But anyway, the point is, what it is it's a place where you collect the player's stones during the action phases. At the end of the action phase, there is a monster phase in which you can place the stones that were put here during the action phase. And this is done in player order. So green chooses first, and maybe pops it there. Then it would be purple, and then black. They might decide that they like the look of that V for Valhalla stone rather than coming up here. Then we have green again. Then we have the purple. They're sticking on this card because they're basically fighting each other to try and take control of the card. So the stones are put on like that. At the end of the turn, if it isn't a scoring round, then players can elect to spend little tokens that look like this for free to move more stones onto the directly onto the monsters. So they'll say, "Yep, I'll spend one," and then purple basically says, "No, I'm not going to let you get away with it too easily. I'm going to spend one as well." Oops. Okay, stones there, and pops it on there, and green spends his last one and goes there, and black basically says, "Oh, in all of that, I'm not going to bother placing any stones." So you take it in turns to spend these battle tones, and once they're used, they're just discarded. So both green played 2 and purple played 1 there, and once they're gone, but you can get more as rewards from the engagement with the monsters. Okay, so once everybody has placed all the stones that were on the Warrior Hall card, the gathering point, and spent any tokens to place additional stones, we then see if any monsters resolve. This top one will resolve because it's completely full. All the spaces on it have been taken. And we can see here there are 3 purple but 4 green stones on there. So green wins that card. So it gets first choice of a bonus. These are bonuses on the left. So it decides to take this token, which you'll notice looks pretty much identical to the Vanaheim icon. And that's because it is a one use of the Vanaheim power. So you just discard the token to use that. This one, which the purple player will take, is a reorder. It reorders. Look at it. Obviously, this will need nice new artwork, but the symbol means that you can change the player order by up to 2 spaces at the start of a turn. Once we've allocated the bonus tokens, we then see if any penalty tokens need allocating. If the monster has been defeated, then the only player who will take a token is actually the player who beat the monster. So consider it like a wound from having defeated the monster. You've suffered for the victory. So this token here would mean that they have to take a stone from any of the 9 worlds back to the card. This one from any of the 9 worlds to reserve, and this one is a -1 action point for the following turn. So let's say, for example, they take that. The other ones just get discarded because only the losing player only has to take the one penalty there. It depends on this number, the second number on this penalty box, and then we return the stones to the players. So green goes back to Valhalla. The purple stone there goes to a player's home world. This green one will go back to the player's card. And the rest are all ours, so that means the rest of the stones will just go back to players reserve. Okay, so at the moment I'm just going to get those out of the way there. Right, so they go back to players reserves. The card was won by green, who gets to keep the card and is able to use the monster power in a moment. We then look at the next card. The next card is not full, so it does not resolve this turn. The only time you have to resolve a monster if it's not full is during a scoring round. So on turns 1 and turns 2, you can just leave monsters not completely defeated, and there's no consequences. If, however, you get to the scoring round, so if this now is a scoring round, then let's put another monster there. In fact, we'll put some stones back on here to illustrate a point here. And let's see what would happen. Neither of these monsters have got enough stones that are on them, so that means they're not defeated. The warriors between us, we've not done enough to defeat that monster. So all the bonuses will just get discarded without being taken. No one's going to end up with this card. We then see whether or not any penalties are suffered by the players, and the way we do that is we look at these numbers down here. 2/1. 1 says that one penalty will be suffered either by the victor if the monster is defeated, or by everybody if the monster is not defeated, unless you as a player have got 2, in this case, stones on the card. If you've got 2 on there, then you've done enough in the effort to defeat the monster, and the monster will steer away from you, or tend to go after players who haven't done enough to defeat it. Okay, so green and purple won't take any penalties. Black, however, in this case, has not put any stones on that card, and so we'll draw 1 penalty token, and it will apply immediately. So he'll have to take if you look at the token, it means take a stone back from any of the 9 worlds and return it to your card. So maybe he chooses to bring that one back to the card there somewhere. Okay, so that is the penalties resolved, and then all you would do is all these stones would go back to players' reserves. They don't go back to the thing that's underneath them if the monster is not defeated. When we come down to this monster here, if this was a scoring round, we would say, okay, well, is the monster defeated? And it isn't. Then we say, okay, everybody takes 1, the second number, penalties, unless they've got the first number 2 stones on the card. Well, no one's got 2 stones on that card, so everybody is taking 1 of these penalties and applying it to themselves. The order that you choose the penalties is you look to see who has done the most to fight the monster, and in this case black has put a stone on there, so black will choose first, which basically means it can take the least damaging penalty. Most likely take a stone back from the Nineworlds to your card. The other players will take their stones in player order because they're tied for the most number of stones on the card, and that would then resolve that. And again, all the bonuses and the cards and things are all discarded because no one's beaten it. Okay, so after the monster resolution phase has occurred, we then see whether or not anyone's got any monster powers to apply. The Draugr here has a power, but there are 2 sorts of monster powers. One at the moment has this sort of grey background, which means it's a situational power. It is used if certain things happen in the game. In this case, it is used if stones are have to be returned to a player's reserve. He gets the ability to bring 1 of them back onto where it came from. The other powers, let's say for the moment that actually somebody did have this Huldra power, someone had won the card, then they would get to use that power. This is a pink backed one, and that means it is used at the end of the monster phase. You go in player order and you say, has anybody got monster powers, and they play them. This one would allow you to bring a stone back into a world where your avatar is from an adjacent world. So if the black player here, the Niflheim player, had got that power, it would be able to use it to drag in a stone from an adjacent world like that, either its own or somebody else's, depending on what it wanted to do. So these different monster powers do different things, a bit like the world powers. They're you know, allow you to move things in and out, send stones back. The lycanthrope power here, which is the werewolf one, allows you to temporarily take over a stone, and there are more powerful powers in the second deck of monster cards. After the monster phase has happened, you go into the battles and world powers phase as per normal. In the monsters and battles and world powers phase, at the end of the turn, you go around the table, and anyone that has got a token can play it as if it was a world power. So you do this world by world. You say, has anybody got an Asgard token? Anyone got Vanderheim's? Anyone got Alfheim? And the green player could say, well, actually, I've got the Alfheim token. And he would be asked, well, do you want to play it now, or do you want to keep it for later in the game? If he plays it now, he plays it, discards it, and he can do a move for free. Okay, well, the two moves for free, just exactly like the Alfheim power. And those tokens are done in world order, but before you work through the world powers that happen normally as per control of world powers. And that does mean that if you've got the Asgard token, you play it, you will not be able to be affected by any token or world power, but neither can you use any other tokens or world powers. So it's very much an all or nothing scenario there, which you have to weigh up. And then you'd move on as per normal to the next phases, which is the Valhalla phase, and some of the cards have powers that come affect or happen in certain phases of the game. Okay, so that carries on like that. You'll replace these cards with the cards, and you'll be able to move stones there and try and take them, and stones will come back to world, and someone will get to control the monster card. And you carry on like that until the scoring round. You then resolve the monsters and either, you know, take the cards and take the bonuses, or everything's discarded, but everyone perhaps has to take a penalty. And in the second half of the game, you use a different deck. You've got this is the number one deck. Get those out of the way there a minute. And in this particular deck, there are the more powerful cards here. So Stone Trolls with 8 spaces, worth 3 points. And look at Loki. Loki is worth 5 points. But it's going to have 5 bonus tokens on it. And it's going to have 2 penalty tokens on it per player. And the only way to avoid taking a penalty is if you've got 5 stones on Loki. So these second tier monsters become more difficult to defeat, and potentially lead to more damage to the players if they don't gang together and go off and defeat the monsters. But again, they also have powers, and the Loki power is that once per turn you can choose any world power and activate it, as if you were controlling that world. So that is the Loki special power. And you would carry on again, now using the second deck of cards, the penalty tokens and the let's get these out of the way here for the moment. The penalty tokens and the bonus tokens are a little different in the second stage to what so some of them have these end game points tokens. So this one here is that you can gain more points by controlling a world, or time for the control of a world. So you'll score 7 points if you control a world, or 5 if you share control of a world. This one is that you get 2 points for every stone in Helheim. So in Creatures and Monsters, you're looking at those bonuses and thinking as well, is it worth me fighting the monsters to get those bonuses, because of what I'll be able to do or earn in terms of points with them. Likewise, however, the penalty tokens tend to be a bit harsher. So This token here says that you would take a stone and banish it to Helheim. That is -1. That's -1 victory point, which maybe isn't so bad. Come on, Tabletopia, function. There we go. Oh, that's another banished one. But there's ones in here which are minus victory points. There's plus victory points on the bonus deck. So, and you can see there was a lot more spaces in the second deck, including things like this, HE, which means the stones that are placed here are going to be going to Helheim. So you're really going to suffer for this victory because those are going to score your minuses. But is it worth it for having Loki? Potentially to get the most monster points. It's worth 5 points itself, and maybe you can bring that stone back from Helheim. So there's in Creatures and Monsters, there is more to think about, more going on here. You can't just focus on the area control battles in the Nine Worlds. You also have to think about defeating the monsters, both so you can't get penalties by doing so, but also in order to get the extra bonuses. They're worth more points anyway. The bonuses are generally stronger and worth having. So that's and then after the question of what is the strategy in terms of points, the other important thing about this is it changes the bit of the dynamic of what happens to the stones, because the stones, as they come in, they go onto these monsters. They can sometimes be locked up on those monsters for a turn or two, but then they'll come back to the Nine Worlds, and if you keep an eye on that, then you can think, well, hang on a minute, I'm going to get 2 stones into Valhalla this way, or I'm going to get two stones that I can put on any of the Nine Worlds. So when that comes back, I can use those stones to try and take control of those worlds. So you really do have to be sort of keeping an eye on what's going on with the monsters as well as what's going on the Nine Worlds. Otherwise, you will definitely suffer the consequences of ignoring them. But it's kind of that whole Viking theme again. This is a Viking themed world. It was all about that courage and going to battle and not just ignoring the threats. And particularly some of the more fearsome monsters like Fenrir and Loki take quite a bit of overcoming. It takes a lot of effort, and if some of these cards come up in the last turn of the game, you have a look at them and you think, it's going to be a real struggle to defeat those. So do you ignore them and just take the hit, or do you try at least to negate the worst of the damage of them? And that's that then. So in terms of artwork, the artwork for this is coming along very nicely at the moment. So here we have a sketch of Grendel, the swamp monster, emerging out of the swamp, and on the right hand side the background sketch art work for the swamp. And on another screen here we have the frost giants, huge, humongous, very giant frost giant, and then a dragon. It's obviously done incinerating of some forest that they pass by, and these are looking really nice. These bits of art that are coming through from Andre now, who's the artist for the original Nine Worlds game and also for Sagas and Treasures. So I'm looking forward to working with him to bring this game to fruition and to get this game published, hopefully by Essen 2021. However, if you would be interested in helping us develop the game, we're still sort of balancing out some of the little details of it. Then if you get in touch, we can be doing demos of this here at Digital Spiel. But if you leave messages either by email or on our Discord channel, we can come back to you at some later stage and get you into a playtest game. And this is on Tabletopia. I can generate that in a room, so it doesn't matter where you are physically in the world. We can probably arrange a playtest if you're interested. That was Nine Worlds Creatures and Monsters. I hope you'll keep an eye on that. It should be out this time next year.